Hey guys, I'm Mark, and today I wanted to do a little bit of a farm update and show you guys one of the projects that we've opened up here at the farm. Over the past few weeks, we've been transplanting a lot of these holly trees that you see behind me. We've got 43 in total. I've got another video that I put out about how we move these trees, specifically like what kind of equipment we used and what the process was, but this video is going to be more about our overall plan as far as what we're going to do in terms of landscaping this whole hillside. I think that now that all the hollies are in place, it's going to be a little bit easier to sort of visualize it. At least it is for us. But this is the plan. This is going to be the plan as of right now. As with any kind of informal gardening, plans do change. That's sort of the beauty of it, right? Is that over time you can kind of make changes and evolve it. You can't really get away with that with formal gardening. With formal gardening, you've got to plan before you ever pick up a shovel. Can't really deviate all too much. But we'll get started. I'll just kind of walk you on through, and as we go, I'll tell you a little bit about what we have in mind. We've got 3 different species of hollies in here, 2 of which are American hollies, or 3 different varieties, excuse me, of hollies, 2 of which are American hollies, and then 1 is a cross between a Chinese holly and an English holly. But the first ones that we're seeing here are a American holly. This one's called Cedar Hill, and it's called that because it's named after a road called Cedar Hill Road right over in Baltimore County, Maryland, just down the street. This specimen, or this, the original plant was found in the woods, and that's why it's named Cedar Hill. Very nice tree. It's got larger leaves than the one I'm going to show you here in a little while. I still haven't memorized exactly which ones are which, how they're laid out offhand, but that'll come, I'm sure. Okay, this next variety right here, this is the cross. This is the cross between the English holly and the Chinese holly. This is called Nellie Stevens, and it's an excellent, tough tree. This tree, all of these trees, we're actually going to let, for the most part, completely grow up into their natural form. They're not going to stay pruned like this, with the exception of the Nellie Stevens. We're going to try to prune them every couple years, maybe once a year roughly. We're not going to do it real perfect like it is here, or as tight as it is here. But you want to do that if you have Nellie Stevens, because they do have a habit of kind of opening up a little bit more. They don't stay quite as bushy as the American hollies naturally do. But if you're willing to prune and trim your hollies, this is an excellent, very tough variety of holly. This is the variety that we use down in the formal garden down below the house, and they're just tough as nails. Very nice dark green foliage. Great plant. That's this one, and then these few here. You can see how they're a little bit darker. I think the overall goal with all this is we're going to wind up, picture these hollies as dots, okay? We're going to wind up connecting the dots with taller types of shrubbery, like hedges of shrubbery. We're not pruned hedges, but we're going to use things like tall rhododendrons, like the native Roseum elegans that we have around here, the big tall purple one, and one's kind of like that. And we'll use those to connect the dots between the trees, and then eventually you're not going to be able to see through to what's behind it. So it's going to allow us to kind of create this meandering little pathway all through here, and then we can make garden rooms and things like that. But we're not just going to use rhododendrons. We're going to have azaleas, some of the big old-fashioned types of azaleas that'll get really huge with time. And then we'll do some hydrangeas as well for some later color in the summer. We got to have a few different things to have us have a flash of color during each part of the season. So we'll have things like tardiva hydrangeas that get really big, the big panicle types, things like that. And then beyond that, even taller, as far as flowering trees go, we're going to use some dogwoods and some red buds, all different kinds of those, maybe some smaller magnolias, things that won't get super huge, but will nestle in quite nicely in here and eventually provide some shade. We might do some very tall trees, like some big trees, only maybe less than a handful, 2, 3, maybe if we have room here and there, probably on the back side of things. But we don't want to have anything that's going to eventually shade out the hollies. These hollies are going to, with time, they'll get pretty big. They're pretty slow growing, but they do get very old if they're allowed to. So that's going to be neat watching them go. All throughout here, as those plantings of rhodos and azaleas and all that get planted, we're still gonna have a lot of time in between. I mean, let's face it, we're gonna have probably 20 years before we can talk about any kind of significant shade going on in here at any one place or another. So in that open time, I think we're gonna do some things like put in some rose arbors or even some full sun perennial beds and things like that. Just take advantage of the open space while we have it. Maybe put some statuary in. I know bulbs, that's gonna be one of the big first priorities, is just get like 100,000 bulbs in here. All kinds of like ones that'll come back year after year, like daffodils and the old species tulips and you know, crocuses, things like that, that'll just kind of naturalize over time. I think that'll be very neat. But it'll be, again, like I said, an evolution for the most part. As far as the whole grand plan goes, I think this is probably a good place to point out one of the main features of this whole area. There's going to be a lake here, right down in the bottom of this pasture, and it's going to span from a little bit back up where we started this video, all the way down towards, maybe somewhere between that first telephone pole and the second telephone pole, about halfway in between that first telephone pole and the fence, I guess. That's where it's going to end. So it'll be this big long lake that we're going to wind up using for irrigation here on the farm. But if we're going to have an irrigation pond, you might as well make it beautiful, right? So the concept is, if you look where that white fence is right there, right behind that white fence is our existing driveway. That's pretty much like the main artery that goes through the entire farm. That's how we get everywhere. So the concept is as we're using that driveway, that pond's going to be there, and then it's going to act like a mirror. So you'll get the reflection off of whatever's behind it, which will be this entire hillside, and then above that, the deciduous forest that's going up the hill there. But the main thing is we want something to look really cool in the reflection during all different times of year. So it's going to require some planning to try to keep that color balanced. If we have azaleas that are blooming in the springtime, we don't want to have any empty spaces or dead pockets or anything like that. So I think the next step, before we get too far, before we start picking out where the dogwoods are going to go and the red buds and things like that, I really want to get a drone. I'd like to have a drone for sake of using it for the YouTube channel anyway, but it'll be neat to fly over and get an above view of these hollies so that we can draw it out and figure out exactly where we're going to go with our larger plantings, dogwoods, red buds, and even like the larger rhododendrons and things. So that'll be a good first step, because it's got to all be balanced, right? Not only just balanced for that specific time of year, but also balanced throughout the seasons and come into some of those late hydrangeas and things. So I mentioned the first two varieties of hollies. I think, yeah, that's also a Cedar Hill. I'm looking for our third variety here. I picked a leaf to show you the difference, but I already shredded it in my fingers while I was talking for the course of this video. I do that. Do the same thing with paper. I think this is one here. Yeah. So it's a little tough to tell probably on the camera, but this variety back here is another American holly, and it's from the same person that found the Cedar Hill holly back in the woods. But he named this holly Miss Helen because Helen was his wife's name. And the difference between Miss Helen and Cedar Hill, this is not a very good example, but Miss Helen has smaller leaves. Cedar Hill, if you stand back, almost looks a little bit darker green. I don't know if you can tell that on camera, but that's what we see. But they're very similar otherwise, other than that. Very nice full tree. Again, these American hollies, we're not going to prune them anymore. The two American varieties, we're just going to let them go and take on their natural shape, which is very nice, especially as they get into old age. And I think that the fact that they were pruned like this, nice and tight, is going to help them stay nice and straight. A lot of these specimens have one single trunk that goes all the way up to the top, so that's going to wind up being a very long-lived tree probably in the long game or in the end run. The reason why they're pruned like this now is because they came from a grid where we had them planted up on the hill. They were planted in like a grid style fashion, and they were pretty dense. We didn't plan on allowing them to get 30 years old before they got moved. So they were planted kind of tight, and we just sort of kept them trimmed so that they didn't all grow together eventually. It also made them easier to move with the tree spade when we went ahead and did that. But again, that's that other video that we did on how we moved those. You got to check that one out. That was a pretty wild project. So here is a big open empty space, and that's because we're going to put a new entrance in to the farm right over here, right where the road kind of takes a straightaway. And so the idea behind why this is so open is because when you come in with your car, this is what you'll see through your windshield, obviously, and the lake will be down there. And then we're going to have, basically it's going to kind of look like what it does now in the center. We're going to grade it a little more, make it nice and flat, but it's going to be a grass lawn that goes all the way down to the very edge of the water. And then on each side of it, flanking that alley, will be standards. We don't know exactly what variety or species we're going to use to do the standards with yet, but they're going to be standards going down both sides, and then we also want to do like some concrete steps. I'll show you guys a picture of what I'm talking about, where we got the idea from. It's going to be pretty similar to that. We're going to make a few changes, but the overall concept is pretty much the same. There'll be 2 hedges on each side, and then the concrete steps will go down in between. And then we'll also, since we have access to water down in the bottom, we'll pump water up and allow it to sort of cascade down those steps. I think that'll be wild. But then anyway, back to where the driveway, how the driveway works out. Your car is going to come in. We're going to grade this area as well. It's too much of a slope here now, so what we'll do is we'll flatten it out, and we'll have a retaining wall here that'll go pretty much the extent of this whole open area for the most part, with a rock retaining wall, and then there'll be a staircase that goes down, and just basically just allow foot traffic to go down to the water. So you'll bring your car in, you'll pull to the right, and then we're going to go to the left of this first tree. And the reason why we're going to go to the left and not the right is because we're actually going to put in a second hedge of these green giant arborvitae here. We're going to do a double wall. It'll just grow them together that much quicker and give us privacy that much faster. But we already got the trees here. I think we're going to commence on that project here sometime in the next few weeks. But they're going to be at 12 feet spacing on center, just like these guys are, but they're going to be on stagger. So there'll be one in between each of the ones that are there now. So by the time that's done, this tree, well, there's going to be a tree right here is why I'm telling you all this. So that's why the driveway is going to go to the left of this holly tree. Plus it's kind of a nice shape too. It sort of meanders around. Straight lines are good in some places, but we're going to be having like straight lines in some places, and then a lot of this is going to be sort of natural. It's going to blend formal and natural landscaping, which I think looks really cool. I'm excited for it. So the driveway is going to follow me just like I'm walking. It's going to be like a natural driveway. It's not going to be asphalt. It's going to be like the old farm style driveways with gravel basically on each side, or larger rocks, and then the center, there's going to be a center median of grass going the whole way down and around. I think that's the idea of what we want to do. But it's going to come down and follow me, and then this is how it's going to approach the house, is it's going to come down straight through there. So again, it straightens out, right? So there's another one of your straight lines, but right here I think we're going to flank the driveway on each side with more Roseum elegans and the big rhododendrons and things, and it's just going to kind of make it a nice intimate way to get up to the house. And the driveway will swing to the left and it'll meet up with the other one. So that's our plan as it is right now, guys. Like I said, plans change, and I'm sure they're going to evolve, and they may evolve quite a bit by the time this is all said and done 20 years from now, this, that, and the other. But I'm pretty excited about it. I think we've got a lot of work to do, and it's going to be a fun journey ahead. So that's it for my video for today, guys. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do. It helps out greatly when I can get more subscribers. It bumps the videos up in front of more eyes, helps the channel out a lot. But for now, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you next time.